Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another new episode of Mint CMO Dialogues. Uh, I am Malaban Ghosh, Mint's automotive sector correspondent. And in this episode of CMO Dialogues, we are going to talk about the automotive sector and how the sector is going to perform in the days to come, and how sales of different kind of automobiles are expected to grow or are expected to increase in the upcoming festive season. Now, before I introduce my distinguished or our distinguished panelists for the evening, uh, I want to introduce my co-host and my colleague Sunira Tandon. Um, yeah. Thanks, Surya. Thanks for joining. And so, before I introduce our panelists, I just want to take a few seconds um, to explain why are we talking about the automotive sector today. Now, given the fact that our economy is not in a very good shape, and and we are still struggling to come out of the adverse impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the automotive sector is an important indicator of economic activity. Now, when sales of cars, trucks, buses, and different kind of vehicles go up or increase, that means our economy or economic activity is increasing. That means the economy is expanding. And also the auto sector, which comprises the automobile manufacturing companies, the spare part manufacturers, and then the auto dealers, the ones who run the automotive showrooms or the vehicle showrooms from where we purchase vehicles, they are considered as one of the largest sources of employment generation. And hence, it is important that the automotive sector grows. It is important that the sector thrives, so that our economy can come out of the adverse impact of this pandemic, which has led to a sharp economic downturn. So I wouldn't waste any time before introducing our extremely distinguished panelists today. So first, uh, I would like to introduce Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Executive Director, Sales and Marketing, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Um, then Mr. Santosh Iyer, President, Marketing and Sales, Mercedes-Benz India Limited. Um, then Mr. Naveen Chauhan, Head of Sales and After Sales, Hero Motocorp Limited. We are also waiting for Mr. Tarun Garg, Director of Sales and Marketing. There is some technical glitch, and we will introduce him as an. Oh yeah, he's there with us. So Mr. Tarun Garg, Director of Sales and Marketing, Hyundai Motor India Limited. Well, gentlemen, appreciate all of you taking the time out from your busy schedule and joining us here. Well, without any further delay, Shashank sir, if I might start with you. Well,
Yeah,
so the center theme of the theme of this particular discussion is the outlook on the upcoming festival season, and we
yeah,
know that the festival season for the automobile industry, cutting across segments, is extremely important. A fourth of total sales come from this particular period during Navratri and Diwali. And so it's important how the automotive sector grows, extremely important for our economy. So, sir, over the last 6 months, what we have seen that the auto sector, just like other sectors in the economy, was badly impacted or by the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what has been the lessons learned over the last 6 months, and how has the recovery also been? You sorted your supply chain issues, all of you. Then you opened your showrooms, sales started to grow, production has come back. Good signs for our economy. But over the last 6 months, all of you, or rather the companies that you represent, what are the lessons that has been learned?
Well, I think you rightly pointed out these are really unprecedented times. We never had any experience of such a disruption in the industry. And starting from, I think, the last week of March, I think 22nd of March onwards, when we had a hard lockdown, there was absolutely no sale. The showrooms weren't open till the 5th of May. So I think in that period, and this was the first time ever in the history of probably the Indian auto industry when you had zero sales, both wholesale as well as retail. And of course, as you know, the lockdown has badly affected the supply chain. There was a lot of rupturing which happened as a result. When the showrooms opened and the supplies resumed sometime in May, we found that the climb was not as steep as it could have been, because there we found, at least in the first quarter, in the industry, the wholesale lagged behind the retail. In other words, there were more demand than the supply. But as we saw month on month, the supply chain has got repaired, and we have seen a dramatic increase in production levels across all OEMs. And we saw May was obviously better than April, which was zero. June was better than May. July was better than June. August was better than July, and hopefully September should also be better than August. And this clearly points out to the fact that there is now greater traction as far as production is concerned. The supply chain is now sort of repaired. The other thing which is clearly coming out is that there must have been an element of pent up demand, because the bounce back that we saw in June and July in terms of retail and also in August was a little bit surprising on the positive side. And we also saw the rural demand coming back strongly compared with the urban one. So this is how I think in the last 6 months things have panned out. Going forward, of course, we need to be careful, because finally the long steady state demand for the automobile industry will depend on the economic parameters or fundamentals of economy. And there I believe it will probably be premature for us to conclude that things have become okay. When we talk of August, we do hear in the media and also amongst the industry circles that things are back to normal. The wholesale was up 20% almost in August. So also the retail. But and retails and wholesale were around the level of 235, 240,000, which is a pretty good number, considering that was the average of last year. But then remember, August was a very bad month. Last year was the worst month after March for the industry. So I think comparison with the past, especially on August, may not be a fair assessment. And having said that, though, there is a lot of optimism going forward. And should the COVID sentiment stay okay, in the sense that it doesn't go out of hand, or if the second wave doesn't come through, or if the first wave doesn't rise too high, then probably going forward we can look to the festive season with some sort of optimism.
Okay.
As far
Yeah.
is concerned, sorry, I'll just add one regarding your question about the learning. Huge learnings, both from the point of view of marketing, both from the point of view of individual thoughts, individual tenacity, the resilience, and especially for our channel partners, both vendors as well as dealers. Us
Yeah.
as an organization, we have looked at each process with a microscope, which all things can be eliminated, which can be modified to take care of the existing scenario, which, as I said, is really unprecedented.
Yeah. Tarun sir, if you could if you could shed some actually some light on the learnings of the past 6 months. Hyundai has also launched new vehicles over the period, and all has been done through digital platforms. So, so how has this whole experience been, and how this will take you, and how this experience will help you steer the company in the coming months also?
Yeah, actually, Malaban, that is very interesting because the biggest learning is that every adversity brings with itself so much opportunity, and I think this pandemic was no different. And as you know, that Hyundai, of course, had so many models to launch, and normally we would launch a model, we would hire a hotel, and maybe call a few journalists, friends, and maybe launch it to 100, 200 people, and then it will be webcast as well as televised. Here was an opportunity where we said, okay, we had actually three models to showcase. We had just launched the Creta before the lockdown happened. Of course, we had to launch the new Tucson, and Varna, the dispatches had started during the lockdown. So we had three models, and we said, why not? I mean, let's have one event. We called it the Next Dimension, and where all these three models were showcased. And believe you me, that we were able to make it in a format that we had more than close to 300 views across various online platforms of this event. So it gave opportunity to really connect with so many of our customers, which under normal circumstances we would not have done. So that was first big learning and a huge opportunity. The second thing which really came out was that we as automakers are very good in making long term capex plans. What this pandemic told us was that we have to be very agile, and we have to really make sure that every opportunity which comes our way had to be capitalized on. Like what Shashank mentioned, that every month was really providing us a lot of opportunity, June to July to August and now September, because customers were actually looking for a safe mobility, a personal mobility, because over the last couple of years, what we were all witnessing was that many of the customers were moving to shared mobility, and maybe there was a belief in the industry that ownership of car was probably no more the in thing, as you call it. But what has happened is now, I mean, many of these customers have come back. In fact, what we have seen is that the inquiry to retail cycle has reduced to less than half in these times, which means
Yeah.
customers are in a hurry to buy the vehicle, because car has now become much more of a necessity than the discretionary purchase which we all thought it had come out to be. So there were a lot of learnings. There are a lot of opportunities. And as far as Hyundai is concerned, I think some of the online platforms that we had launched just before the pandemic, whether it was click to buy, I think it became very relevant in these times. So it threw us some really good opportunities to really connect with customers, to show them that as Hyundai, we really care for them, and we are a forward-looking company with new
Yeah.
technologies and various options that we can give them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. We'll come to the digital platforms part a little later in the show. Well, Naveen, sir, if you could just enlighten us about the two-wheeler industry as the country's leading manufacturer, what have you observed, and the kind of learnings that you would like to take with you forward from the past 6 months, the way the company has managed supply chain, production, sales, everything.
All right, Maliban. Interesting times, and each day comes up with a new learning. The whole story started when we had the lockdown from 22nd of March, and the first one who were to be taken care of was our challenge partners. I mean, there was immediate need of building that confidence, and the first learning, if I were to put, was how do you connect deeper with the channel partners, and the kind of support that we've created for all of them during COVID times. uh, I think that has further deepened our relationship, which are already strong in a company like ours, whose foundation stone is relationship. That gave birth to connecting with the other stakeholders in the system. uh, I mean, on the back end side, there was a regular town halls which were conducted by our chairman with vendors, and as I said, with dealers. But we went a step beyond. We connected with, in the retail market, in the open market, the technicians, the retailers, and the customers, our own customers, right? I think the first piece was about building the strong connect. The second was, if we look at how COVID unfolded in the country, it impacted certain markets first, and then it started impacting various other markets. And as if we see today, the impact in various markets is very, very different, right? And the
Absolutely.
response of the customer is also very, very different. And hence, the next learning was that you can't paint the whole country with one brush. You can't paint one state with one brush. Even within the states, you will have many other clusters who are going to behave very, very differently. And hence, it helped us bring micro market focus, right? And understand the need of those consumers. I mean, there was a double whammy. One was COVID, and the second was BS exchange, right, which increased the cost by 12 to 15% in various markets. And hence, look at how the consumers are reacting to these two triggers in the market, and accordingly respond quick and fast. And as Tarun said, agility was the key. As Shashank was mentioning that, in the initial phase, it was demand which is outstripping the supply. The supply chain still continue to, come back into the real shape. And hence, how do you position your products in various markets and get the benefit out of that in a process, the way dynamic management happened, with the agility that it called for. uh, I think we managed it very, very well. And if I look at the impact, we've gained 3.8% market share within by the end of August. So it's been huge, interesting times. Every week, every day is a new learning for us, and we are enjoying it.
Yeah, I think so. But now, coming to Santosh sir, the luxury car market operates in a very different way compared to the mass market ones. The fact that how was the impact? Of course, there was an impact, and the fact that if you could just help us understand that how Mercedes Benz dealt with the challenges, and then how did you manage to re-establish your connect with the customers, and then at the same time trying to manage production, retails, everything. So how did you manage operations over the last 6 months, and what have been the key learnings?
Yeah, first of all, I think when we came into the pandemic, the market and the industry was already slowing down. So if you look into last year numbers, the second half of last year was already tapering down. However, we at Mercedes-Benz had a very good run in the last quarter. In fact, we closed it with one of the highest ever quarter in our history. So we were quite euphoric. We were looking forward to 2020 on a very different note, and going on to Auto Expo and trying to set new benchmarks. And then came the pandemic. For us, we had a bit of heads up from our colleagues, in other countries, say Korea, China, and because they already started experiencing. So when we went into lockdown, in fact, we went into lockdown a bit earlier by 9th of March itself, with the cases coming up. We then decided and regrouped and said the first priority is to see what can we do around us to our society and to the stakeholders. When I say society, it is to do with building hospitals for COVID, trying to do CSR and other activities. And when I say stakeholders, it is about our dealers, suppliers, and partners. So our entire focus that time was to recalibrate and trying to support the ecosystem, and of course also many of our customers, trying to also tell them not to venture out with their cars and stuff at this point of time. Post that, being a German brand, we believe a lot in planning. But what COVID also taught us is we have to plan month by month, and those days of long-term planning, strategic planning, 5 year, 10 years are not
Hmm.
there, because you have to plan month by month. So we prepared,
Absolutely.
and there is a very famous saying which says, never let a good crisis go away. Never waste a good crisis. And this is where we were very committed that we will go up to online as one of the key driver, and the entire omni-channel experience, which we were actually envisioning and we were looking at next 2 to 3 years. We pulled it forward, and we were able to also deploy it at this time. Today, 15% of our sales in the last 2 months' time comes from digital channels and online sales, and that's something we couldn't even imagine. Our dealers couldn't imagine, a luxury car being bought online. Coming
Yeah.
to trends, we are not immune to the shock. There is a demand shock and there was a supply shock. I think the supply shock was also coming from CBUs and also CKD kits. We have a long tail because it takes 6 months time for the CKD production setup. But that we are trying to sort out. We are still on a couple of product launches like the A class, the new GLA have been delayed. So that's there. On the demand side, month on month we are growing by 25%. So when you look
Sure.
at a graph, it looks like V, because we had April as zero, and when you extrapolate anything from zero up, it looks like V, so you can be happy. So that's one way to look at it. On the other side, when you look at last year to this year numbers, it's not as encouraging. There is around 50% degrowth. And what's concerning is the overall luxury car market is worse than us. For us, we are still better off. But when we look at a segment, the luxury car market in India is close to 35 to 40,000 cars. And at such a small volume base, when that starts degrowing and when that starts shrinking, it's a very big cause of concern. But last 2 months, we have seen an uptick. There is a 25% month on month growth, as I said earlier. And then the only other phenomena we see right now is the top end of the segment, which is 80 lakhs and above. When you talk about
Yeah.
the GLE, the GLS, the AMGs, there we have sales more than pre-COVID. We have sales which is much more than even pre-COVID times. And where we see an impact is the below 80 lakh segment, which is 40 to 80 lakh bracket. I think it's natural. Customers are taking time. In our segment, it's a discretionary purchase because many of our
Yeah.
customers have another car in their household, so they would like to wait. You have today in there, they are also running large organizations or large businesses. So there are cost pressures, there are salary cuts. So they don't want to now invest, in a luxury goods or a luxury purchase. But this is changing. We see a sentiment change in September. The first 15 days were good, though it's Shraddh. There is a lot of bookings coming in. So I think the next 2 months we are optimistic. We feel we should come back to at least levels in the next 2 months.
Okay. Before my colleague Sunita takes us into the discussion regarding the festive sales, I would like all four of you to just put it in within 15 to 20 seconds your outlook on the sector for the rest of the financial year, or for Mercedes the calendar year. Shashank sir, if you could just start with it.
Yeah, I would say uncertain. Again, we have that famous stock answer: cautiously optimistic. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but urban demand now coming back. That's a very positive sign. Rural demand, obviously, the bounce back has been extremely good, probably because of the good monsoon, the more kharif sowing, and so on. So it's with only the reason why I say uncertain is only because we are not sure which way the COVID sentiment will move. So we keep saying, and again, it's a very common thing to say, there can be a vaccine upside, there can be a virus downside. And that is how we have to look at it month by month, and look at trying, as Tarun was saying and Naveen was saying, be agile. And that's what we will do for the rest of the year.
Yeah, Tarun sir, what's your take?
Yeah, echo what Shashank said.
And
I think last few weeks have given us more reason. I would say so, slightly more optimistic, and especially that the festival is coming, and August festival also. Whether it was Ganesh Chaturthi and Onam, which is a good indicator of how festivals are going to pan out. I think we are fairly optimistic about the next 3 months. But yes, like what we still don't know what's going to happen to the COVID. So that question mark still looms.
yeah, Naveen sir, if you could just add to that. Hello.
So you
So if you could just unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So I would say I would echo what Tarun and Shashank said. Very uncertain times, but if I look at how the rural is unfolding and fundamentals, barring few markets, fundamentals in rural remain fine. And we have seen the response of that. The market were just waiting to open, and we've seen a V-shaped recovery in the rural demand right from the June onwards, and it continues. Uh, the urban demand is coming back, and in fact, the festives bring a cheer and a reason to smile and reason to purchase, which was evident in Ganesh in the markets which Ganesh positively impact. Particularly Maharashtra and part of Karnataka, we've seen that positive cheer coming to the market and customer coming out and making a purchase. Uh, so I would say, rather than looking at for a year, it's very, very important that we move month on month and calibrate our response, calibrate the demand, and accordingly move forward. Right now, the whole focus is on festive, and our estimate, as the nice word of being very, very cautious yet optimistic.
Santosh sir, if you could just add to what Mr.
Yeah.
Chauhan said.
I think we echo similar sentiments on the festive, as part of the industry. For us, there is only one difference because for us, the supply side shock is yet not over because, as I said, some of our new launches like A-Class and GLA getting delayed because of the pandemic, and we are still not able to do some of those startups. So that's there, and that will mean we will not be able to fully, get the momentum to the brand. On the other side, we are also seeing prices going up because exchange rates are actually going in a different direction. Pre-COVID, it used to be 79 to a euro. Now it's close to 88. So we will have also a price increase coming exactly during the festive period. So that may act as a dampener. Having said that, we feel we will still be able to come close to last year levels, and that will be a good comeback. So we are also cautiously optimistic, as Shashank mentioned, and
Okay.
that we are looking forward for the next 3 months' time.
Okay. Now, Sunita, it's over to you. Please.
Yes. Thank you so much. So, sir, I just wanted to understand from the panel, of course, a lot of companies are hinging their growth on the rural market and the recovery in rural. Of course, in auto, we've seen two-wheelers and tractor sales go up. What about private personal vehicles? Mr. Srivastava, if you could sort of help us understand, especially when the festive season started in rural markets, what was the sentiment? What were consumers coming into the showrooms with?
Yeah, so as I think everybody has mentioned here, rural bounce back has been much better than the urban bounce back. And I think the primary reason for this has been that this year has been last year has been a record Rabi crop of almost 150 million ton plus. As also the monsoon has been pretty good. I think till yesterday it was about 7.5% up over last year. And Kharif is pretty good, which means the future and the Kharif crops are expected to be good. Moreover, the effect of COVID in rural areas has been rather limited and been more confined. If you see the containment areas, the red hot areas, red spots, those are actually more confined to the urban areas like Mumbai or Pune, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Coimbatore, and so on. So I think combined, therefore, has made the sentiment in the rural areas a little more positive, and the fundamentals of economy with the great investments that government has made, even starting from last year onwards in the rural economy, does indicate to a positive bounce back in the rural areas. And the one thing, though, I must say that we keep saying that Bharat is leading India. That's true at the moment, but Bharat cannot carry India, which means that especially in automobile, although you may say rural demand, it's not a equal sort of demand. There is a large portion of the demand which is urban demand, and unless the urban demand improves drastically, we may not see the great bounce back that everybody is expecting. And that is why it was a very positive sign when we saw the rural demand also showing a growth in the month of August. Although, as Santosh was mentioning, overall, if you see from April to August, there has been a decline. But but the rural urban growth has been positive in August, and the rural growth has been higher than the urban growth. That's the other thing. Going forward, I would expect even in the festive season, if the COVID sentiment is not. Remember, festive actually, why people are talking of festive? People are talking of festive because for automobile, especially cars, this is, while I agree with Naveen and Tarun when they said that it's more like a functionality buying now. People are preferring personal transport over public transport. So there is more functionality buying. And less of that conspicuous consumption which we talk about. So we are talking of conscious consumption now. However, having said that, we do believe that when the urban demand also comes back, and since it's a discretionary purchase, not just pure functionality, we do believe that sentiment plays a big role. And normally in the festive season, the sentiment is always positive. It's a atmosphere, it's an environment where everybody wants to buy, and there is a general good feeling. This is a little bit, probably there is a question mark because of the uncertainty regarding COVID. But as I said, if the COVID sentiments still stay as they are and do not worsen, we could look forward to the festive season, which is quite good. Remember, last year, the festive season, Q3 was as big as the Q3 the previous year, which was a record year. So it's not as if Q3 last year was bad. It was, Santosh mentioned H2 being bad, and actually H1 was really bad last year, about 25% negative for the industry, whereas Q3 was flat. And we were actually plus in Jan and February till the COVID the lockdown train hit us coming from the opposite end of the tunnel.
Right. Mr. What about you? Of course, I hope I'm audible. You've obviously seen strong sales in rural markets. How is your experience compared to what Mr. Srivastava is talking about? To Mr. Chawla.
To me? Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, Mr. Chawla, sorry, yes.
There is no Mr. Chawla.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Mr. Garg, I'm sorry, just got that wrong. Sorry, Mr. Garg.
Okay. Yeah. So look, I agree with what Shashank said, and I'd just like to put some number to it. You know, now there are some states in India where the agrarian economy dependence is much higher than the other states. So what we have seen, like when we talk about say August, 19% growth for the industry, say 20% growth for Hyundai, what we found out was that the states where the dependence on agriculture is higher, their growth was about 30%, as against the other states where the growth was 10%. So I think there's a 20% swing between the two, and that is why I think it becomes that is why the rural is coming out so strongly as against the other. At the same time, we must understand that the basic growth of the car industry has to come out from the cities, because that is where the basic demand lies. And like what all the other co-panelists are saying, the sentiment has to improve, the economy has to improve, and that is what we are looking forward to. At the same time, I think August has given us a lot of hope, especially for the festival. And I'll again repeat that that Ganesh Chaturthi, for us also almost 35% higher than what it was last year. So a very strong uptick. Even Kerala, while the growth over last year may not seem to be too high, but we must understand that this state was really passing through a very bad sales for the last 6 months. So over that, there was a big uptick in the festival, and it continues even in this month. So my point is that it's a good indicator, and September is being used by most of us to really prepare for the festival season and make sure that we are able to give the customer the vehicles which they want. Because I think the key thing here would also be that ability to supply the vehicles to the customers when they want it. Because all of us have seen in the past that we are always following the demand. Sometimes we are too ahead, and overstocking happens, and sometimes we are too behind. So I think the challenge here, because we cannot afford to be inefficient, and all of us know that how much everybody has suffered. So we have to be spot on in our forecast, at least for the next month, and make sure that we are able to take care of any opportunity that comes.
Right. Mr. Chauhan, I'm sorry. Just coming to you, was there any, what mindset was the rural consumer coming into the showroom with? What was the exact sentiment they were coming in with?
Okay, so I'll just give you a context before I come to your question. For two-wheeler industry, the two parts to the whole sales thing. One is the necessity, the demand drivers, and the second part is how do you make it affordable for the customer to buy. There are a lot of structural changes which have happened in the rural segment, whether it is APMC Act, ENAM, the buying of it, PM Kisan Yojana. Uh, Fundamentally, the penetration also remains very, very low in the rural market. So there are enough robust factors which are, which gives a cue for the sustained long-term demand in the rural segment. The second part to it is about affordability, or these guys are uh, you know customers in the rural segment. Uh, all as Shashank mentioned, in terms of the rain, if we look at not just the monsoon being 7% up, but it's been timely and it's been well spread, which augurs very well for kharif production over a very very strong rabi production in recent past. Apart from that, I think there are a lot many more finances which are going into rural market. And for Hero, the kind of ecosystem that we have created in terms of 6,000 outlets across the country, we've got very, very deep penetration into the rural market to harness and capture that demand. And, our supremacy in the rural segment is justifies, our presence and focus.
Right.
As far as the sentiments are concerned, there is a basic necessity with going out to nearby mandis and selling your crop. Plus, there are more additional sources of income coming in. There is a positivity, and this is across, except for maybe some of the markets like Kerala, wherein you impact not just because of tourism industry being badly affected, but also some of the local crops not doing good. Uh, so fairly positive, and right now, as Shashank mentioned, Bharat is taken a lead in the beginning. And even if I go historically, last 4 or 5 years, rural has always led the urban demand by 4 to 6%. In these times, it has gone to 8 to 10%.
Right. Did you need to do anything extra to sort of get the rural consumer to come into the showroom, or you think there was ample demand, as you mentioned,
Uh,
from a marketing point of view?
so, see, the initial hiccups of COVID-led impact, which made customers to stay inside. uh, Customer wanted to come in touch, and we were also trying to reach out. Our telecalls went up almost double in the month of May, which was also an indicator about how the June is going to be like, and we planned accordingly. The digital medium is coming out very handy. I mean, for rural customers too, and we've increased our play in that space, wherein we are having a chat with customers on the digital platforms. So reaching out is the key. Now, how do you ensure that contact less? You reach out to them and connect with them and deliver what they're looking for. Holds the key.
Right, that's interesting. Mr. Iyer, I'll just sort of modify that for you to talk about non-metros in that sense. How is demand there, especially with the onset of the festive? You did talk about, queries and sales being substantially significant. So could you talk about non-metro demand specifically?
No, yeah. So we are seeing completely new use cases of a luxury car. In our segment, we are seeing that earlier all these flight sectors, you had Bangalore, Chennai, Bangalore, Cochin, or even Delhi, Jaipur. All these sectors, people used to travel by flights. Now there is some aversion to flight travel, and they are all going in for luxury cars. They are traveling the Chandigarh, Delhi, for example. So we see a very big surge in demand because consumers are using cars for business now. What they were used to take flights, etc., because they want a good car, they want a safe and reliable car, and this is something which never existed. So these are newer segments which was not there prior to COVID, which is now existing, and actually we are also seeing a demand in these sides. The second set of customers are people who now think with a mindset that our biggest competitor, I keep saying, is mutual fund, because it's not that India people don't have money to buy a luxury car. For them, they always feel that let me save, let me put it in SIP, and maybe this gives me better return for my family and for the well-being in the later part of my life. But now with what has happened to the stock markets also during this COVID period has changed people's perception. No point in just putting these savings there. Why don't we just come out? Why don't we enjoy the finer things in life? And that's what the current campaign, we are telling unlock yourself, unlock with a Mercedes Benz, because it's something that you can enjoy for you. You spend close to 2 hours in a car in a city commute, and why don't you do that in a quality way, in a safer way, and enjoying a luxury product? And that's something now we are seeing an increasing trend. So these new use cases, you can say, is something that we feel may also drive the festive demand, because new customers who have been thinking now whether to buy a car, is this the right time? Maybe this helps us to also push, and that's why we see in the top end of the segment, as I said, S class, GLEs, the new GLSs. There the customers just go out and are splurging, they are spending. It's now up to the others bottom of the segment, when we say the 40 lakh and above, which is considered to be GLCs, the E classes. Those customers should also come back ideally during festive period. But these are some new trends or some new use cases that we find today post COVID, which never existed earlier.
Right, interesting. And has that given you an opportunity to drive engagement in these markets? Anything you're doing differently in non-metros?
So, we have to take care, and the omni-channel experience now is completely explored, because, many a times now a car has to be driven by many of our customers. They need to feel this car. So, definitely we do the contactless process, sending the car there, doing test drives. But then, interestingly, the payments and the booking mechanism, and including transaction, because, there is a thing about trying to get the best deal. And here, our sales consultants are using, digital tools to do virtual consultation with customer, giving them deals and offers. For the first time, a full transparency of our inventory seen to a customer. So, earlier we used to hold it back, but today we give full transparency to customers, and they can book the car online. So, these are something new initiatives, and omni-channel in the real sense. So, the lead comes online, transaction, again, the negotiation and also test drive happens offline. And again, the booking happens online. So it's a very omni-channel experience that's currently being driven. From our side, the unlock campaign that we have just started now, we are doing and communicating. This is all about telling consumers to enjoy the finer things in life, as I said, and that's something, this campaign we are trying to also revive sentiments as we move on to the festive season.
Right. Maliban, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sunita. Well, sir, first to Shashank sir and then to Tarun sir. I want to ask you something very specific about passenger vehicles, or because initially when the unlock happened from May, we saw that compact cars were doing well. Then suddenly we saw, not suddenly of course, then we saw that utility vehicles doing very well. I mean, for both the companies, you are leading the market, and your respective products in the segments are doing very well. And also compact cars were doing, and compact cars of course were leading the race to recovery, or were leading the path to recovery. So Shashank sir, if you could just help us understand, and also to our viewers, that in the next few months, or especially during the festival period of say Diwali to Navratri, uh, are you betting more on compact cars, or rather entry level cars, hatchbacks, or like products are cutting across price points will do well?
Yeah, so let's first give a perspective to those segment-wise demands which you just mentioned. First of all, as we have been talking about that post-pandemic, people are sort of avoiding public transport, going in for more functionality buying. You also see a very clear trend that the first-time buyers have increased. In our case, in fact, in the industry, they've gone up. The last research shows about 5 to 6%. There has been, because the rural and the smaller town growth has been faster and higher than the urban growth. There is also a shift in terms of the geography demand. So I think combined with this, the requirement for functionality buying has obviously gone up. And the other side, however, is that people expect that their income levels would come down because the economy hasn't been doing as well as it was doing a few years earlier, or even the last year in some of the quarters. So these two are opposite and a little bit of conflicting demands. The demand for increased mobility, at the same time a loss of income, which is why there has been a shift of demand downwards. And that shift of demand, which in marketing parlance we call telescoping of demand, does not mean that there is any segment which simply evaporates. It only means that demand is shifting downwards. So if you look at, for example, a person who is buying, who would otherwise have bought a big sedan, they may buy a smaller sedan. A smaller sedan may buy a Baleno i20 type of product. If that type of customer may move downwards to a Wagoner, then to Alto, a used car, two wheeler, and so on and so forth. So there is a shift, definitely of downward shift. As regards and that helps obviously the hatches. So the hatch percentage has gone up a little bit. And going forward, if you look at the parameters of consumer demand for the future, which includes inquiries, which includes bookings, you would see that this segment would and is expected to further strengthen. As regards, and also I must say, we must not be misled by the current demand patterns, which could be because of the pent up demand in the past and may not indicate a long term steady pattern of demand. As far as SUVs are concerned, or the B segment is concerned, we have seen MPVs going up, especially for us. The Ertiga has gone up substantially in terms of our share of the segment. But in terms of UVs, I think there the demand is being propelled by the introduction of some new products like Creta, for example, the new Creta, the Seltos, the Sonnet, and relatively new Venue, and so on. So I think there the demand is also propelled, and this is true for automobile industry in general. And also in the SUV segment, for the first time, the mid SUV segment is actually higher than the entry SUV segment. For the last 5 years, it was the entry level SUV which was higher than the mid SUV. As I said, it is probably because of the introduction of the new models. And remember, in the SUV category, over the last few years, SUV category has been going up. It was about unlike the entry hatches, they were the forget the pandemic. If pandemic wasn't there, then the trend was towards the hatches coming down. In fact, they were at 61% a couple of, I mean, not couple, about 4 5 years back, and they're now about 46%. The hatches. Sedans have gone down from about 22 23% in 14 15 to about 10% now. So there has been a loss in there. That was also the long term before the pandemic, the demand. And SUV demand long term has also been positive. The B segment. So B segment, if you look at MPV separately, demand was about 5 6%. It has gone up to about 8 9%. If you look at SUV separately, which was about, I think, 13 14%, is gone up to about 26 27% now, and further going up actually for this quarter. But SUV body type demand has been actually pretty strong, and I think not the SUV itself as a usage, because in India it's not a four-wheel drive, unlike other countries where SUV might be used for off-roading. It is also used for status or image or ease for the tougher Indian roads, and that is why you see many OEMs, including Maruti Suzuki, preferring SUVs type of vehicles, even in the small car category, like the Espresso in the entry level car, or the Ignis in the premium hatch, and so on and so forth. I think the long term trend we are projecting is that the trend will start again after this pandemic thing is over. Will again back to the earlier trend which we were seeing. That is our projection.
Yeah. And Tarun, what's your outlook?
Yeah.
Are you expecting the Creta and Venue to kind of take those numbers to where it was last year?
Yeah, actually, frankly speaking, I would say that customers have proved that as long as we have a strong brand, a strong product, a greatest technology, and choice of fuel types, I think he's ready to spend money. And here I would like to agree with Santosh that in fact customers are really looking for, okay, how do I spend my money? If I see value there, and I would go ahead and see it. I'll just share with you some data. Like Creta, if you see, the numbers are now hovering around 11,500, 12,000 per month. On top of it, the Venue 8,000. So 20,000 vehicles from Hyundai now coming from the SUV segment alone, and both have become market leaders in the BS6 era. Why? The question is why. I think the answer is very simple. One, we have been able to offer the customer a choice of powertrains like diesel BS6. I think this has really played a very important role. What we have seen is almost close to 60% of the Creta buyers are preferring diesel. So that is really adding on to the volumes for us. So irrespective of the pandemic and irrespective of the fact that the customer incomes may have been affected, but where they see value, they are wanting to really go ahead and buy. In fact, even on the Verna segment, and here the sedans also, like what Shashank said, while compacts were coming down, even sedan segment was not seeing such of an uptick. But what we have seen is, thanks to the launch of the Verna and probably the City, even that segment is showing a very good traction. And here also, because we have a great petrol and we have a great diesel, Verna has also managed to have a leadership in that segment. So what I'm trying to say is that while sometimes logically it may appear that customers are moving down the value chain, or maybe they are wanting to buy entry level. Yes, entry levels are selling well, which is reflected in our NIOS numbers, 9,500, etc., etc. At the same time, as long as you give the choice of a powertrain to the customer, as long as the model is new, as long as the technology is exciting. For example, Venue, yes, we launched it 1 year back, but then we launched this IMT technology, the intelligent manual transmission, and it has again put in even more life into a great product. So the whole idea is, how can you keep the things exciting for the customers? How can really you give him more options so that he can decide that this is what I want to buy? And I think the numbers, the market share, all the other things will follow. So we are very happy that the customers have really appreciated the new initiatives by Hyundai in terms of products and technologies. Automatics, again, the 5 choices that we have been able to give the customers, whether it is AT, AMT, IMTs, IVT, so the whole idea is, if you have the technology, and the customer is definitely evolving, we have seen over the past 4 5 years, the customer is becoming much more knowledgeable, and he is ready to experiment as long as he feels that this is a global technology, and this will really help to reflect what are his values in life, So I think that is what Hyundai stands for, and that is what we have been able to achieve,
Okay.
even in these pandemic times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Naveen sir, if I can come to you. I'm asking you a very specific question. So in the rural markets, we know that Hero's entry level motorcycles are. I mean, you are the market leader. Over the last 2 to 3 months, what we have seen is demand has been quite robust compared to what it was before. So there has been a sequential growth. So during the festive season, I'm coming specifically to the festive season. How confident you are that the entry level motorcycles will see a substantial growth, and Hero is also re-entering the premium, is in the process of re-entering the premium market as well. On the premium side, also, how do you think that the demand looks like?
Okay, so I think somehow related to what you'd asked Shashank and Tarun also in terms of entry level cars, and so is the question about entry level bikes. And I strongly echo what Tarun said, that customer is not just looking for a product which delivers on the functional needs. Customer would put the money where there is immense value. So customer is, buying a product, the ecosystem around it. With ecosystem, what I mean is, the brand that delivers the trust and reliability, the brand that delivers the convenience, and above all, the pride of ownership of the product. I mean, even if we look at in the recent times, and also the last year, uh, at an entry level, our product is good, few thousand rupees costlier, but then we gained 10% market share in entry segment last year, which is, an evidence of customer wanting to put the money on overall value proposition that he or she looks at. Even in the current times, if we look at where is the customer coming to, it's an iconic brand of Splendor, where we've seen maximum contribution going up a little, and I see the trends would continue even as we enter into the markets, and as far as the premium is concerned, we are now into premium with some beautiful products. Expulse has created its own niche, and you see the rave reviews of the product. In initially, because of the constraints that we had in terms of supply, we had supplied that in the market, in the Kerala market. You got huge community which are building up, and appreciating and raving about niche product segment, is Expulse. With Extreme, we are entering into premium commuter segment, which is the belly of the premium market. The initial responses has been tremendous, and this is one space that we are seriously looking at to gain what we created in past. And if I really just get into the YouTube videos and others which have been posted by the customers, I'm very, very optimistic and positive about our performance in this segment.
Okay. Coming to Santosh sir, if you could just succinctly put it, that we don't have much time left. We have 7 minutes left right now. That that's a that we've often discussed post pandemic, that down trading. Now in the luxury car segment also, what is the experience? Is there significant down trading, or customers are willing to buy the product that they actually intend?
No, as I said, luxury car is a discretionary purchase. So it's not that he has to purchase it now itself, and he needs to go from point A to point B. So technically, we don't see a down trading as such, but what we see is a significant rise in our pre-owned car market. So there are a lot of customers now. I think this is pent-up demand for maybe new cars. Also, we don't have a car in the new NGC segment, which is the A class, the GLA, the CLA segment. So many of them are opting for a nice pre-owned Mercedes Benz also. So that's a big demand. In fact, we have a supply where we don't have cars to offer, because customers are also retaining their old cars more to them, and the residual values are getting pushed up. But that's some trend that we see. But otherwise, in terms of downtrending, we don't see even between variants, because we as a policy only give top end variants. We hardly have a basic entry level variant at any price point. So and that's what we see. The customers are still preferring on fuel type, diesels, petrols. We have not seen any change in the preferences pre-COVID or post-COVID as such. And of course, as I said, what Tarun also mentioned, in the automotive industry, there is nothing better than new products. And new products excite the market, excite the customers. So all the new products that we have launched actually post-COVID, be it an AMG car, be it a GLE, the new GLS, many of them are in a month or 2 months of waiting period. So there we see a bigger demand, and these products excite the market. Of course, our bread and butter product like the E-Class, the long wheelbase E-Class, etc., continues. There, as I said, there is a wait and watch approach, but it's just a matter of time. Now, with the Shraddh getting over, we feel we are already seeing almost 20 to 30% increase in inquiries for the festive period. So definitely, this should get converted now into sales, and we should see a positive uptake in the next 2 months' time.
Okay, now we have around 5 minutes left. So one last question to all of you, that about digital platforms. Now, especially when it comes to the festive season this time, how will you use your respective websites or other digital platforms to further connect with your prospective customers? Uh, Shashank sir, if you could just start.
Of digitalization actually started has been going on for the last few years. For us, for example, just about 3-4% of the inquiries used to be from the digital platform. Just before the pandemic itself, they had risen to about 15-16, but now they are like almost 40%, 35-40% range. So I think digital platform has become very big. It is also been indicated by all researchers with the consumers that they would like to have as much as the buying process through the digital means, and that is why we have a very strong development of the digital platform, where now only the actual delivery and the test drive is the part which is obviously cannot be digitalized. But even the finance part, which was the 3-4 touch points with the consumers, which we have now gone into the digital space to enable even that part to be done on the digital platform. And that I think is going forward. Is going to further accelerate. And it is, when we talk of digital, it is not just about inquiries. It is not about booking, as some of the people in the industry do say. It's also about having a total data of a single view of a customer, both on the interactional aspect as well as the transactional aspect, to have a predictive modeling for his or her future behavior, and that is, I think, the real digitalization. Maruti Suzuki, of course, has been doing that in a big way, and going forward, even in this festive season, I do believe it will play a major role
Yeah,
in sales.
we just have a little less than 2 minutes left. Arun sir, if you could just put it succinctly, that how your click to buy kind of platform will help you both. Then I'll come to Naveen sir and Santosh sir.
Yeah. So click to buy, as you know, even before the pandemic, we had launched it, and I think it has become so very relevant, and we are receiving a very huge traction from customers on that. And to add to it, like we have launched a Hyundai Mobility membership, where we are trying to give the whole experience to the customer, a lifestyle kind of an experience, and through an app. And we have partnered with 21 partners, where customer can get not only benefits related to car, but also related to his lifestyle, entertainment, etc. So the whole point is that, like what even Shashank said, I think digital is not only about the car purchase, but the entire lifestyle of the customer. You can affect, and I think this is what the customer is looking for. What is it in it for me, beyond buying of the car? And I think this pandemic has really thrown up such great opportunities for us to really leverage this aspect of the business.
Okay, Naveen sir, if you could just put it in say 20 seconds or so. I'm so sorry, I just realized.
Digital now is the way of life. Our daily, the leadership team meets on digital for an hour or so daily, led by our chairman, Pawan Manjal.
Yeah.
Uh, And as rightly said, while we have e-shop, which we have created for this transaction journey, but digital is much more than just transaction. It's how effectively do you use for engaging with customers, engaging with various stakeholders will hold the key. So because the time is short, so I'll just stay at that.
Yeah, Santosh sir, if you could just put it in say 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, I think at this point of time to say digital is the in thing, I think digital has always been there, and I think it's not something new here. How you use the platform is important, and for us, the key word is omni-channel, because from a customer experience, he doesn't care you are on digital, you are on brick and mortar, you are on newspaper, you are on any medium. He wants an omni-channel experience, a seamless experience, and as a brand, as a luxury brand, we just try to do the same and try to see how can we deliver. We are not yet fully there, but yes, this is the best time to change, and we are
Okay.
getting there with all our
Yeah.
platforms.
Okay. Well, it was a really insightful conversation, and all four of you, gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for joining us. Sunita, thanks for being a really nice co-host. Well, best of luck for the festive season, and to all our viewers, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Stay safe.